You know, it's amazing. Today is actually, this is my last board meeting as a chair. And if anything I've had over the last 2 years is that I start meetings on time. Hey, for whatever reason, we've had issues between delayed in trains. The latest one, we have two board members that are critical to the meeting who are now trying to find some alternate parking spot because the building is full, or the parking lot in the building is full. So bear with us. We'll get started. Good morning and welcome to the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority November 12th meeting of the Board of Trustees. Before we get started, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you for being here today. Today is one of the challenging weather days for us. It's probably the first snowflakes that we'll be getting, as well as rain and temperature dropping around 20 degrees, which will cause some issues in terms of roadways freezing. As a reminder to all members, the microphones around the board table are very sensitive, and this meeting is being also taped and webcast. Now, to get started in the minutes, Beverly Morris, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act?
Yes. This is to advise that, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, BL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been forwarded to the Newark Star Ledger, the Asbury Park Press, the Courier News, the Daily Record, the Home News Tribune, the Jersey Journal, and the New Jersey Herald. It was posted in the Essex County Hall of Records in Newark and on the bulletin board of the Lieutenant Governor in Trenton.
Thank you, Beverly. Will now please everybody stand to join me in honoring the American flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beverly, could we have the roll call, please?
Bergen,
Present and voting.
Essex.
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
Jersey City, Middlesex,
Present.
Monmouth,
Present, non-voting.
Morris, Newark,
Here.
Ocean, Passaic, Somerset,
Here.
Sussex, Union,
Present.
Warren,
Here.
Governor's Office, NJDOT,
Here.
NJ Transit,
Here.
Port Authority,
Here.
Citizens Representative.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have 13 voting members present and a quorum.
Thank you very much, Beverly Morris. The next item is the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes of the September 9 board meeting? I guess seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Next motion.
Auditor moves. 21 seconds.
Essex.
Thank you, Essex, very much. Essex moves. We have, find out if all in favor, any opposed, any abstentions? So I guess since we have a very quiet room, I guess everybody agrees. Do we normally go for a vote on the minutes? We do, no? Verbal is fine?
Let's do it again.
All right, let's go. If everybody is in favor, would you just say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? I didn't hear any, or abstentions, so I thank you very, very much. And the next item is the chairman's report. And good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We are honored to have with us Dr. Benjamin Strauss, who is the CEO and Chief Scientist of Climate Central. In a few minutes, we'll hear from him about the importance of climate change in our region. Dr. Strauss presentation is part of an ongoing series that we have hosted this year as we prepare for our next long-term, long-range transportation plan, which looks out to the year 2050. Unfortunately, here in New Jersey, we have experienced the devastating effects of extreme weather firsthand. We just marked the 7th anniversary of the Superstorm Sandy, and parts of our regions are still trying to recover from that disaster. At the NJTPA, we know how important resiliency is. We were selected by the FHWA to play a lead role in a multi-state plus Sandy study. We have conducted several other planning studies focused on weather events, including the most recent completed in Passaic River Basin Climate Resilience Study. I look forward to hearing from Dr. Strauss on this so important topic, which will certainly play an important role in our long-range plan update. As I noted in the past, part of our region ongoing look at critical planning issues for the year 2050. This year, we have also heard from Sam Schwartz on the future of driverless vehicles. We have heard from Dr. Myron Orfield on our region's changing demographics and the environmental justice and social equity changes they bring. We've also heard from Tom Wright from the Regional Plan Association on priorities issues for our region and the greater New York City area. We have heard from Amit Bose, chair of the Coalition for the Northeast Corridor, on making Gateway and other infrastructures a part priority, and from Robert Clark, the FHWA New Jersey Division Administrator, on the importance of performance measures. And speaking on performance measures, I wanted to briefly talk to you about today action item. The board is being asked to support the 2020 safety performance measure targets set by NJDOT, or the New Jersey Department of Transportation. You'll hear more about this shortly when Freeholder Bartlett gives his committee report. First, I wanted to take the moment to thank NJDOT for working closely with us and other MPOs in the state to develop these targets. You may wonder why we aren't setting up a target of 0 fatalities. These questions did come up in our committee meetings last month. Of course, we all want to see the day when there is 0 deaths. This is the ultimate goal. Even 1 fatality is too many. In fact, these short-term targets will help us work toward that particular goal. We recognize that we can't get a 0 overnight, but through safety improvements, projects, and education programs like Street Smart New Jersey, we are working to reduce these numbers and eventually make the vision of 0 deaths a reality. I am proud to announce that our Street Smart New Jersey program has now worked with more than 120 municipalities across the state, not just in the NJTPA regions. We recently launched a campaign in New Brunswick for the first time and working with the city of Trenton, for which is new to the program. I also was fortunate enough to help kick off the Linden campaign late September, and I look forward to more communities joining in this very important initiative. Of course, engineering solutions can and do make streets safer. Just look at the NJTPA local safety program for perfect example of that. We also need educational programs like Street Smart that get people to stop the risky behavior and contribute to crashes like speeding and distractions. As always, if you know of any communities interested in joining this campaign, please encourage them to get involved. The more municipalities that participate, the more people we can reach with our messages, and will help will make our streets safer for everyone. In closing, I wanted to mention One more thing, of the topic of first safety, central staff has been very involved in the state strategic highway safety plan update, which is being led by NJDOT. This is a comprehensive data-driven plan that focuses on the 4 E's of safety: engineering, education, enforcement, and emergency medical services. This plan will update the state's goals, objective performance measures, and emphasis areas that guide the safety program and its initiatives, and it's also its investments. Safety has always been a priority at the NJTPA, and this plan update will help guide our work in this area. I look forward to seeing the final product sometime next year. And that concludes my comments for today. Thank you very, very much. And now I ask NJDOT, do you have any remarks this morning?
Yeah, I just want to build on that. We're having our first safety summit this Friday. I believe it's at 9 o'clock at the College of New Jersey, which is Safety Summit #1, which is the first meeting leading towards the update of our 2020 strategic highway safety. So we're, everybody is welcome to attend. The invitation's been up for a while. We're hoping to have between 200 and 300 stakeholders. But it's the first step towards updating our current strategic highway safety.
Thank you very much, Mike. New Jersey Transit, any remarks?
Well, I guess I can't be outdone, so
I was
I'll
gonna
also
say.
announce, there is an event celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Transit Village program in New Jersey this Thursday, Rutgers, Brunswick. Plenty of information available on the website. It's been a great partnership, obviously, with DOT and the MPOs, frankly, so hope folks can.
Thank you, Jeremy. And now we'll listen to to Mary, who will kindly present the report to the board.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's fall again, and that means we're busy preparing our work program for the upcoming year. The fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, will guide our planning work as well as that of the subregions and the Transportation Management Associations from July 1, 2020 through June 30th of 2021. And as we remind the board every year, now is your chance to provide input on the work of central staff and the subregions for this UPWP. Central staff has already begun drafting the program, which will include some new and exciting initiatives. The draft will be released in time for discussion at the next round of committee meetings in December. One key element will be work on our next long-range transportation plan, which must be adopted by September 2021. As the chairman noted, work on this plan has already begun. To jumpstart efforts to gather public input for the plan, we're bringing a consultant on board this fiscal year to help us with wide-ranging outreach strategies. During fiscal 2021, we'll be looking to hold outreach events and public meetings in all the subregions, along with various online and social media activities. It's not too early to begin thinking about how we can best conduct outreach in your areas. We'll also be continuing our specialized outreach efforts with the help of Rutgers Voorhees Transportation Center, or VTC. On that note, with the help of VTC, last month we officially kicked off our young adult advisory group called Up Next North Jersey, with an event that was right here in this room. This group includes about 30 young adults from across the region, and over the next several months we'll be getting them involved in current projects and gathering input for the next long-range plan. We'll also be working with VTC to launch a new public outreach liaisons program to help facilitate communication with traditionally underrepresented groups, such as minorities and low-income residents. Another important focus of the UPWP will be emerging and new transportation technologies. Along those lines, central staff recently participated in ITS New Jersey's annual conference, including moderating a panel on local technology applications such as computerized traffic signal systems, excuse me. Of course, much of the discussion revolved around potentially transformative technologies, including electric, connected, and automated vehicles. There are still many uncertainties about how and when they will be deployed, but we are looking to lay the groundwork now to ensure that these and other transportation innovations deliver public sector equity and societal benefits, not only commercial gains. To this end, next year's work program will begin using modeling and scenario planning to look at the potential impacts of automated vehicles and related technologies. We will also be conducting a GIS-based traffic signal inventory to assist in future signal system investments. We will continue to support the implementation of complete streets at the local level in partnership with Sustainable Jersey and Rutgers VTC. There is intense interest in this work from our partners and stakeholders. 2 recent workshops that we organized on complete streets drew excellent participation, and so another session is planned for January. In addition, for the second year through this partnership, we are offering complete streets technical assistance to municipalities. The deadline to apply for this popular program is December 20th. In fiscal 2021, we will also be exploring policies and plans for managing active transportation in communities, not just walking and biking, but also so-called micro-mobility, such as scooters. Micro-mobility was a concept that wasn't even on most of our radar screens even a couple of years ago. Now, 3 towns in our region, Asbury Park, Hoboken, and Elizabeth, have people using electric scooters to get around, with more towns certainly to come. In terms of freight, there are plans to update our rail freight grade crossing inventory next year and to advance new projects under our Freight Concept Development Program. And I should also note that 2 new sub-regional studies are slated for 2021. Jersey City will assess alternative transportation modes, and Passaic County will be developing a countywide bike plan. Again, you'll be seeing a draft work program in December, and we welcome your ideas and input. Final UPWP is slated for board adoption in March of 2020. Turning to other matters, I would like to report several significant collaborative efforts with our member agencies and partners. We continue our active support for Together North Jersey, or TNJ. In September, the full TNJ Forum met here to focus on health and wellness, followed by meetings of the 4 TNJ task forces. And last week, we hosted a very successful TNJ workshop on modern roundabouts, featuring presenters from Central Staff and from FHWA. On December 5th, there will be a workshop on crime prevention through environmental design. We were also pleased to participate in NJDOT's annual research showcase, which is a valuable forum for sharing new ideas and techniques for improving transportation. Central Staff presented on automated vehicles and on road safety audits being conducted around the region. NJDOT also deserves recognition for the milestone recently achieved by its State Highway Service Patrol. We attended a celebration of the service's 25th year of helping travelers in need of roadway assistance on our state's highways. And just last Wednesday, all 3 of New Jersey's MPOs, along with NJDOT, NJ Transit, and our federal partners, met for our quarterly collaboration meeting. These meetings at NJDOT headquarters have proven very valuable for information exchange and discussion of important policy issues. So thanks to Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo and his staff for organizing and hosting these important meetings. We also recently participated in the Metropolitan Area Planning Forum's Freight Working Group hosted by the Lehigh Valley Regional Planning Commission last month. These meetings foster collaboration between MPOs from New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. I should also note that Central Staff attended the annual conference of the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or AMPO, where staff moderated a panel on scenario planning. I would report on much more, but in the interest of time, we'll refer you to Central Staff highlights in your board books. And one final note, I'm pleased to announce that Jeff Perlman is the NJTPA's new Senior Director of Planning, so please join me in congratulating Jeff and wishing him well.
Nice job.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I had intention to move the agenda a little differently, but I see that Kathy was able to beat the all the conditions out there that are holding us back. So the next item is the committee reports, and first we'll hear from the Project Prioritization Committee, and that's Kathy DeFilippo.
Good morning, and thank you for your patience. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Project Prioritization Committee. At the October joint meeting, the committee considered one action item, a minor amendment to the fiscal year 2020-23 TIP, as requested by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to use federal disaster recovery and resilience program funding for the replacement of the Harrison Station Southwest Head House and platform in Hudson County. This project was previously included in the TIP, but it was not ready for authorization as scheduled by the end of the TIP fiscal year 2019. It will be ready by the end of this calendar year and therefore needs to be added to the 2020 element of the new TIP. The project includes matching funds from the Port Authority. The committee recommended board approval of this minor amendment, which is listed as action item 1. Also at the meeting, the committee heard a detailed presentation by NJDOT with the development of the Route I-80 westbound rockfall mitigation project in Warren County. You will recall that several members of the public came to our last board meeting to express their opposition to the project, which is identified as a high priority in the state's rockfall management system. Following NJDOT's presentation, the committee heard from several local residents and officials who expressed concerns about the project's potential impacts. The NJDOT representatives answered several questions and invited further public participation as the project undergoes the environmental review process. This concludes the Project Prioritization Committee report.
Thank you very much, Freeholder. Item number 1 is the approval of the minor amendment to the FY fiscal year 2020-2023 Transportation Improvement Program as requested by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to utilize disaster recovery and resiliency programs funding, which is attached as G1A and G1B. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Middlesex moves.
Thank you, Middlesex. Passaic seconds. Thank you so much. Are there any comments from the board on this item? Okay. Any comments from the member of the public on this particular item? Okay. Beverly, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. And now the Planning and Economic Development, Freeholder John Bartlett, who's the chair.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. At the October joint meeting, the committee considered one action item regarding safety performance measure targets for the NJTPA region. Federal rules on performance management require that MPOs and state departments of transportation coordinate to set performance targets for specified measures and integrate those targets into their planning documents and processes. The NJTPA is required to update these targets annually. To do so, staff coordinated with NJDOT, the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety, and the other New Jersey MPOs to analyze trends and develop appropriate safety targets aimed at 5 performance measures set by the Federal Highway Administration. These safety measures include number of fatalities, rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, number of serious injuries, rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and number of fatalities and serious injuries involving pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized travelers. With this action, the NJTPA agrees to plan and program projects that support the attainment of the state safety performance measure targets for 2020. At the committee meeting, it was noted that preliminary data for 2018 indicate the state has achieved 3 of its 2018 targets, which are number of fatalities, fatality rate, and serious injury rate. For the number of serious injuries, the target was not met, though there was improvement. The number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, however, did not improve. If the final 2018 data shows similar results, the state will have demonstrated that overall, it met or made significant progress towards the 2018 safety targets. At the meeting, it was suggested that the NJTPA consider creating our own targets to better meet the New Jersey Strategic Highway Safety Plan goal of reducing total fatalities and serious injuries by 2.5% per year. This can be further discussed next year when the targets will be updated again. Of course, as Chairman Estrada said, our ultimate goal is to reach 0 deaths and serious injuries on our highways. These shorter-term performance targets can help us make progress toward that goal while allowing us to make much-needed infrastructure investment to improve safety for all travelers. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Freeholder Bartlett. And I have, number 2 is support for the 2020 safety performance measure targets set by the New Jersey Department of Transportation in collaboration with the NJTPA and other metropolitan planning organizations in New Jersey. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Morris will move it.
Thank you, Morris.
Middlesex seconds.
Middlesex. Thank you very much. Any comments from board members? No comments. Any comments from the members of the public on this particular item? Hey, Beverly, would you please go to a roll call, please?
Essex,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
Jersey City, Middlesex.
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Passaic,
Yes.
Somerset,
Yes.
Union,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
NJDOT,
Yes.
NJ Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
Citizens Representative.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you very, very much. The next item here is the freight initiatives, and I will give the report on behalf of Freeholder Charles Kenny, who is the chair. I am pleased to report on the activities of the Freight Initiatives Committee. At the October meeting, central staff reported that 2 concept development studies are advancing as part of the Pilot Freight Concept Development Program, which is designed to advance freight-related projects that do not have a specific path through the established project pipeline. One of the pilot studies involved a bridge over a drain in Hackettstown that cannot accommodate national standards of 286K rail cars. The other looks at the potential realignment of the Dover and Rockaway Railroad, which currently runs through downtown Dover and does not have safety gates. As the 2 studies move forward, the project team has become the selection process for the next round of studies. Candidate studies have been screened and pre-scored and will be sent to the subregions for input and feedback, and 2 or 3 studies will be selected for funding starting in July. Staff also reported that field work continues to gather additional information on the use of trucks parking rest areas in the region, as well as parking along highway shoulders and other areas not designated for truck parking. The availability of truck parking is a critical local, regional, state, and national issue. And for the present portion of the meeting, Charlie Bontempo from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey provided an overview of the Port Master Plan for 2050, which was released in July. The plan is a flexible roadmap to develop competitive financial success port while minimizing regional jobs and, or I should say, maximizing regional jobs and economic impact and minimizing environmental effects. Mr. Bontempo noted that the Port Authority port facilities encompass more than 3,000 acres, including the Port of Newark, Port of Elizabeth, and and Port Jersey Marine Terminals in New Jersey, and the Howland Hook and the Brooklyn Marine Terminals in New York. Mr. Bontempo outlined trends and emerging issues that the master plan addresses. The 2019 container volume through the port is expected to increase by 6.5% over 2018. And long-term projections are looking at a potential doubling or even tripling the amount of freight by the year 2050. Mr. Bontempo has stressed the master plan's goal to sustainability and resiliency to be bolstered by the development of alternative energy sources such as solar and offshore wind to power electric equipment while reducing port-related emissions. Also, the meeting, the NJOT reported that agency's Office of Maritime Resources continues to work with local stakeholders to explore mixed-use marine development at Port Raritan in Middlesex County. And finally, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Port Authority for arranging a very informative tour of our board members, along with Union County, the City of Newark staff, and FedEx and UPS air cargo operations at Newark Airport last month. We had an opportunity to view the various types of aircraft used by the extensive sort operations at these major freight carriers. We were the first outside group to see the new UPS facility at the airport, and that was a great tour. And that concludes the comments of the Freight Initiative Committee. Thank you very much. And next, we'll listen to the, under the area of federal policy update, Freeholder Matthew Holt will give us an update on our federal policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the implementation of the FAST Act, I think the federal reports have been fairly positive. I'm here to change that today. This morning, I want to just spend a couple of minutes discussing what is critically important, and that is the rescission of $7.6 billion nationally under the FAST Act, which frankly could very severely impact federal transportation funding. This rescission was written into the FAST Act. Essentially, it's a way to make the numbers work out under the congressional budget rules, and it would go into effect on July 1st, 2020, during the current federal fiscal year if legislation is not put in place that would prevent that. The impacts of the rescission are beginning to become clear. At last week's MPO collaboration meeting with NJDOT, Mary mentioned in her report that NJTPA staff heard that the estimated impact to the state of New Jersey is $630 million in federal transportation funding that at this point is expected to be rescinded from the state of New Jersey. To put that in perspective, only the state of Texas is having more dollars rescinded from it than the state of New Jersey. I want that to sink in for just a moment. This is a case of where we would like to not be number one or number two. We might rather be a lower number, but this is the second highest total across all 50 states that would impact the state of New Jersey. It could virtually affect almost every program that is funded under the FAST Act, including the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the Transportation Alternatives Program, and the PL funds that the NJTPA depends upon for its planning work. And it means that NJTPA and the state's other MPOs, as well as NJDOT, have already got to start planning on what they should do if these funds become rescinded. Meanwhile, we do have representation in Washington through organizations like AMPO and NARC and AASHTO, and they are working diligently to urge Congress to take action to ensure that this rescission does not take place. Now, if there's a silver lining in this thing, and there always is some sort of a silver lining, there is a very strong bipartisan and bicameral support for preventing rescission. As I mentioned earlier, that comes through an act of legislation. In particular, there is an effort underway to prevent the rescission through the National Defense Authorization Act, or the acronym of NDAA, and that is the annual bill that specifies the budget and expenditures for the U.S. military. The NDAA typically enjoys very strong bipartisan support in both houses of Congress. It tends to come with fewer budgetary challenges than many other bills. The negative on it is that this year, however, there has not yet been an agreement on moving that bill forward. That is still an action to be taken. If you can, I certainly urge you to reach out to your congressional representatives. You need to let them know how important it is to address this issue, prevent this rescission. And I assure you that NJTPA staff is in regular communication with AMPO, as well as NARC, about this and related issues, and certainly will keep the board, the committees, and hence us, keep all of you to date on any new developments. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Freeholder Holt. That's something that we need to keep a close eye on, and I know you will keep us very informed in the future as to the progress that is making. Item number H on the agenda is the planning for 2050 presentation. Now, as part of our ongoing planning for 2050 series, that is informing our next long-range transportation plan. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Benjamin Strauss, CEO and Chief Scientist at Climate Central. Climate Central is an independent organization of leading scientists and journalists researching and reporting the facts about our changing climate and it is the impact on the public. Dr. Strauss has authored numerous scientific papers and reports on sea level rise, and is an architect of the Surging Seas suite of maps, tools, and visualization. He has testified before the U.S. Senate and presented state and local elected officials. In his past work has been cited by the White House and the Secretary General of the United Nations about surging seas, has earned more than 100 million page views, and Dr. Strauss' research has been cited more than 10,000 times in the U.S. and international publication. He has appeared as an expert on National Network News, National Syndicated Radio, and documentary television. He holds a doctorate in ecology and in evolutionary biology from Princeton University, a master's of zoology from the University of Washington, and a bachelor's in biology from Yale University. Please welcome Dr. Benjamin Strauss.
Thank you, Chairman Estrada, and to the whole board. Really appreciate your having me and inviting me. And I'm glad to see that you're holding this series of presentations on long-range planning and thinking in terms of long-range plans. So today I'm going to talk about climate change and in particular focus on sea level rise. And unfortunately, my message is going to be that sea level is going to rise higher than you think. The challenge is going to increase faster than you think, and there are more things threatened than you think. But there are actions that we can take about each of those challenges, and that's why we're here. So beginning with higher, and I'm going to give you a really big picture because, look, this is one of the biggest concentrations of roads and transit in the country, right? If any place can think big or be a model, I think it's here. So I'm going to give you the real deal in terms of how much sea level rise we can actually expect over time. And I am going to talk about longer time frames even than this long-range plan you're discussing, but I think it's useful for a few reasons. I'm going to start with this really interesting public art installation that was put in Paris in December 2015 for the International Climate Talks. It It's called Ice Watch. Those are 12 kind of iceberg chunks towed from the Greenland, floating off of Greenland, towed to Copenhagen, driven to Paris. And so I guess the idea is it represents time, and over time you watch the ice melt. To me, it represents a very simple but profound truth about sea level rise, which is that ice does not melt right away when it's in warm conditions. It takes time. So if you have a freezer full of ice and you unplug it, it doesn't all turn to water right away. It takes time. So what does that mean? Well, we've already warmed the planet by more than 1 degree Celsius, probably actually around 2 degrees Fahrenheit, a little more. But the glaciers melting, the ice sheets melting, have barely just begun to respond to that warming. There's a lot more sea level rise in the pipeline if we stopped polluting tomorrow. In fact, if we stopped polluting tomorrow, I think we could expect about 6 feet of sea level rise. Now, so you can just, in all of your planning, whatever projections or numbers you see, just guarantee there will be 6 feet. And if we go on to meeting the targets in the international agreements, 1.5 degrees, very optimistic, 2 degrees is still quite a stretch given our current path, we can expect that we will be locking in 12 feet, 20 feet of sea level rise. Now, that will take a long time to happen, centuries, okay? So it's not your long-range plan for 2050, but it is coming. It's much easier to project the amount of sea level rise than the pace. That freezer I unplugged, any one of us without a degree could tell, would know it's all gonna melt. Now try asking, well, how many ounces will melt per minute? And what minute will it finish melting? Much harder. And that's what most of sea level science and projections are involved with. When you get projections and you're trying to base your plan on projections, we're trying to figure out how much is melting per decade, much harder. So we're doing our best. But I guess if you take one thing away from this presentation, I'll just kind of lead with it, is everything you do to prepare for higher sea levels will not be in vain. Those higher sea levels will come. And also, everything you do will just be the first step in a journey. It will not be the solution, right? Someone might say, well, you have to plan for 2 feet of sea level rise. Great, plan for 2 feet of sea level rise, but know that your successor will have to plan for 3 or 4 feet, and her successor will have to plan for another couple feet, and so forth and so on. So if you're getting a right of way to, I don't know, build a berm, that right of way might need to be a little wider, and build a small berm right now costs less, it's all you need. I mean, who plans for 100 or 200 years? But you will need a higher berm in the future. So it's just something to tuck away inside. Ice melts when it gets warmer, but it takes time. Now, climate has been pretty stable for the last few thousand years, and the ice on the planet has been pretty stable until the last century. And here's just a quick visual illustration of melt on one glacier in Alaska across 60 years. Here is a look at 2,000 years of sea level rise by century, so you can see a very distinct uptick. We're still measuring sea level rise in inches last century, but it's switching to feet. Here is a look at temperature over the same period, same time scale, so you can see a nice correspondence, or not nice correspondence, of the sea level increased temperature. That's pretty clear that should be. Carbon dioxide, obviously, spiking. And now we're looking over a much longer period. And just to kind of bring home this long-term commitment, this shows 400,000 years of carbon dioxide, temperature, and sea level marching more or less in lockstep. But the important thing to note is that carbon dioxide has shot way up, and in the next panel in red, temperature has just started to respond, and in the next panel in blue, sea level hasn't yet started to respond in any perceptible way in this. The big jump you see in sea level, that ended like 5,000 years ago. We had 400 feet of sea level rise between 20,000 years ago in the Ice Age and 5,000 years ago, because there was a warming. But we've been stable for around 5,000 years until that last uptick that I just showed. So that's to reemphasize, there's a lot baked in that's coming. We can make a big difference by cutting climate pollution, by the way, in how much we'll see by the end of this century and in the future and how fast it will come. We can make a big difference and reduce the problem, but a lot is baked in, and you are charged with the serious business of protecting our transportation system, so it's coming, and you have to be prepared. All right, now I want to just share, actually, well, here's a look. Here's this general area, current coastline. Here is a fairly low projection of the sea level rise already locked in blue. So current coastline, 1 degree Celsius warming. That's what's coming. Here's 1.5 degrees. That is better than anyone thinks we'll do. Here's 2 degrees, the main Paris target, with all of Hoboken below water. And most people find that pretty ambitious. Here's 3 degrees, which is closer to our current path. There's 4 degrees, which we could also be on a path for. All that's in Celsius, scientists speak. Here's a look in Google Earth at Newark Airport in the present. 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees. Just to give some perspective on local transportation infrastructure. So that's higher. What about faster? Here's a look at the tide gauge water levels at the Battery in Manhattan over the last century plus. You see a pretty gradual pace of sea level rise, pretty steady. Globally, there was slower sea level rise in the 20th century, around half an inch per decade, but now we're north of an inch per decade in this century, and with continued acceleration. But you see this steady line, even over the last 50 years. Compare that to the rate of coastal floods and coastal flooding. And this is a graph for Atlantic City, which I know is a little south of the MPO, but it's illustrative. Even when you have a fairly steady, slow sea level rise, the number of times that the frequency of flooding above a particular threshold, and in this case, that threshold is what the National Weather Service defines as a flood, a minor coastal flood, because some roads are flooding, some infrastructure is flooding. That can rise much more steeply. I don't want to get into the math of that, but I guess think of it this way. If you're at the edge of the ocean on the beach, standing with your bare toes, and the waves are lapping up to you, but they're getting to an inch away, wave after wave, but they're not getting you wet, right? You only need a few inches for the tide to come in until you're getting wet on every wave, right? So you can go from very rarely getting wet to very frequently getting wet with a very small change in sea level, and that in effect is what you're seeing on a different scale in this graph, an exponential increase in flood rates in Atlantic City, and we're seeing that farther north as well. Similarly, this chart looks at the projected frequency of floods above 5 feet. That's how high Irene got. And obviously Sandy got a lot higher. And this is for a medium kind of rate of sea level projection, and you can see kind of towards the middle of the century, we start doubling the annual chance of floods at 5 feet every decade, right? So it grows slowly until it shoots up, and you have a couple decades that are horrible. And that happens, if I were to show you the graph for 4 feet, it would happen, it would look similar, except everything would be shifted maybe 10 or 20 years earlier, right? So it goes like that. Here's a look with a faster sea level projection. So slow sea level rise can still translate to a fairly rapid change in the frequency of flooding of some critical assets in the system. And I'm showing you material taken from an online tool that we have that you can explore called riskfinder.org. We've got analyses like this for every county in the state, every city, in fact, the MPO itself. And here's just an excerpt from a recent paper that a colleague and I wrote, which shows the same thing, but integrates the frequency of flooding with kind of where stuff is built. So here, you look in the middle row in the far right panel, it's a picture of the exposure of roads to potential flooding in Hoboken. And you can see by mid-century, we're projecting under the red line a high sea level rise scenario, a high emissions scenario of about 40% of the road miles are going to be below the top flood level each year on average in this projection. Actually, we've just been developing a capability to do this. So if you have a portfolio of 100 assets or 1,000 or 10,000 with latitudes and longitudes, we can produce basically the expected number of times that any of those assets, that coastal floods will reach higher elevations than any one of those assets. So you can index all of those assets in terms of their relative coastal flood risk very quickly. So more stuff. I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of stuff on vulnerable low-lying land. Here again is just a map, one of our websites, ss2.climatecentral.org, showing again this 5-foot level. And now we can get into how much stuff is below that level. For New Jersey State as a whole, it's more than 2,000 miles of roads, more than 100 miles of rail. And in fact, I might try and do a magic trick here and see if I can, oops. I'm gonna just go to the live thing because if you come to Risk Finder, you can type anything you want. Here's a look at New Jersey, and this is like a secret back door here, but I'm gonna come down and look at here's different counties with your mapping population, and look at lots of other variables. But I'm going to go New Jersey by Metropolitan Planning Organization. So here is our analysis for now I'm going to click on North Jersey. So here we are, NJTPA. We already did the analysis for you guys, actually years ago. And we can scroll down to see what is at risk. Well, here's population. And now let's look instead at infrastructure. So it's 1,000 miles of roads below 6 feet. Now, on another level. Oh, we're having a problem. There we go, 5 feet, okay. 900 miles at 5 feet. 79 rail miles. We can look at, transit, 17 transit passenger stations, 15 ferry stations, 13 intermodal freight terminals. So we got a ton of stuff in here, and I invite you to use it. The same thing is true for all of the counties and cities represented here, the same kind of panel you can explore, and then you get a map. I'm gonna flip back to the main presentation and just kind of zip through here. I've shown you the ideas here, just to show you we get down to about zip code level within a county. So you can look at different areas here in Hudson County. Railroads, transit passenger stations. And you can download all of this, make your own PowerPoints, or even get individual facilities listed. Now, we did this with federal data, so you have better data about your stuff and where it really is. And we can talk if you want a similar analysis. Finally, on the sea level front, I recently published with colleagues at Rutgers an analysis looking at accessibility to employment based on roadways which would be flooded and how flooding changes accessibility. Because it's not just what gets flooded, but it's also about can people get to where they, even if my place of living and my place of work are not either flooded, but the way to get between them is, that's a problem. So the red here just colors different roads which are below the different water levels indicated. And then we do an analysis of the % reduction in job accessibility. So we did this research in southern New Jersey. It was just a case study, but it's a kind of analysis that's possible. Of course, these different numbers they could represent a very transient flood, or over time, a more permanent situation as sea levels rise and tide levels rise. And here's just a closer look at the kind of real world correspondence. Sometimes you get just one spot on one road, which has a major impact on accessibility for a particular community. Finally, it's not just sea level rise, of course. That's my emphasis here. Sea level rise is coming, but there are advantages and disadvantages. It's relatively slow, but it never goes away. It's going to be permanent. We could have an awful rainstorm next week, and we're having, fortunately, they come and go, and that's, maybe more of a one-time preparation, right? Hardening or I won't say hardening, but rather designing infrastructure to withstand really significant downpours. And as you can see, the wettest day of the year has been steadily increasing in this area over the last 70 years, although with a lot of noise besides that signal. And of course, it's getting warmer, and we're seeing more and more heat records and fewer cold records per year, per decade over the last century. And more days above critical thresholds. So to the extent that materials for roads or rails or other places have performance issues when you exceed a particular heat threshold, I think that is going to be very much an increasing concern. So a lot of troubles unless, right, there's a lot that a group like this can do. So I'm really grateful for your time and attention, and I'm hopeful that you will take this very serious change that's happening quite seriously as well. So thanks for your time, and if we have time, I'd be delighted to take questions.
Sure. Are there any questions from the member of the board? Any questions from the members of the board? Sure.
So, you're listing specific points of infrastructure that are at risk of failure, right, or permanent inundation.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not making a judgment as to whether they'll fail or not.
Right.
And when we look at points of infrastructure that are below, say, 5 feet, 5 feet means different things. Like 5 feet this year means, maybe a 1% chance of a flood that high. 5 feet at the end of the century might be below the high tide line. So, and in between those points, it becomes more and more frequent flood risk, and that flood may or may not be disabling for that facility.
Right. have you considered sort of ranking certain points of failure based on likelihood of passing permanent tipping points? So like the portal to a tunnel, right? There is a permanent tipping point and it could be a half an inch, right? So that sort of resonated with me with some of the things you were discussing, is that, you're okay until you're immediately not okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if your group is thinking about potentially looking at the most major critical points that could reach these tipping points earlier, and whether or not we as an organization focus on those. And one of them that comes to mind is the yet to be built Gateway Tunnel.
Yeah.
Right, which if we're not building it to last at least 100 years, what are we actually doing if we're planning on spending $15 billion on it?
I think actually there's, you raise a great point about the time frame there, because often I read about people saying, well, we're planning to build something. What is the design life of this thing? Let's look at the projection between now and the design life. And then I look around at the infrastructure we have, and everything is like at double its design life. Like we haven't built something new or thrown that thing out. So, and then also consider if you build a new train station or tunnel entrance or a major piece of infrastructure, it creates inertia. Like other stuff is going to get built around it. Population, there's going to be more, right? So it's really a much longer term picture when you cite a new project. And so I think it is appropriate to take these much longer term considerations, these longer term projections into consideration. As for whether we make an evaluation based on these critical points versus, say, a stretch of road, we don't currently. We don't have that expertise, but that's where really we rely on, or can rely on, entities like you, right? If someone came to us and said, look, here's a list of assets, and here are the ones on the red list, and here are the ones on the, that they can handle frequent flooding list, right? It's easy then to do analysis on those different groups, but we would, we're not experts in transportation infrastructure. We would need that input from someone else.
It sounds like a good study for the UPWP.
Sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the members of the board? Any questions from the members of the audience about the issue that Dr. Benjamin stressed? Sir, there's a mic right next door to you there.
Okay. As oceans warm, and I know you've taken that into consideration, your water expands as it gets warmer. I'm sure that is, but we actually have a conference next week in Miami talking about electronic trucks, electric trucks and cars. What's the net result of that? I mean, is there, as we become more, if we have a big surge in electric over-the-road tractor trailers and electric cars, is that good or bad? What's the net result on that?
Well, the net result of that will be a reduction in climate pollution and reduction in other forms of air pollution, quieter roads, a lot of less grime covering stuff, less oil slicks on the road. So a lot of changes. It's part of the long-term picture in terms of reducing climate pollution and ultimately slowing and reducing the total amount of climate change. One of the issues that comes with frequent saltwater flooding of roads is, and they see this in the Keys in Florida, actually a lot, like all their cars rust out within a few years because they're always driving through shallow saltwater and splashing that up on the undercarriage. I have no idea whether that's a bigger issue for electric cars or not, and in any event, it's not a situation that anyone wants to sustain. But basically, electric vehicles are helping to fight this problem, and so it's part of the solution.
Any other questions from the audience in reference to Dr. Strauss's presentation? Doctor, thank you very, very much. I think if anything has opened our eyes.
We have, I saw
Oh, we
one
have one.
more down there.
Sorry, I was a little
Ms.
late.
Patel, I'm sorry.
Just curious, outside of education industry, there have been reports in agriculture use bigger negative. Have you seen that the big policy is the shift, the trend in land use, or with agriculture, then the United States? That's
Yeah, so the question was about agriculture versus transportation as contributors to climate pollution. And there are lots of different ways you can divide the pie of our total climate pollution. And I don't want to get into it, is transportation bigger or agriculture bigger? They're both very big, and they both can be part of the solution. So for agriculture, one challenging thing is if the national diet became less meat intensive, we would significantly reduce our carbon emissions. There are also new farming techniques which can turn soil from a source of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere into a sink. So instead of tilling the land, plowing it up, exposing soil to react with the atmosphere and lose carbon essentially, if you use seed drills or basically circular saw type things that plant seeds without tilling the soil, it becomes a carbon sink. So there are definitely agricultural practices which can make a big difference and ways to improve land, planting forests. But it's a good point on the other side. My talk has been about preparing for climate impacts in the transportation sector. It is also the case that the transportation sector can do a lot in terms of reducing emissions, and no place better than here. If we can build transit systems that get people out of their cars as much as possible, and or transition to electric vehicles and highly efficient vehicles as much as possible, then that will be a major contribution to reducing emissions.
I just have one more, I guess, comment or question. This is Jared.
Yeah.
So, you're showing maps with sea level rise, and that's assuming that the existing population or built environment stays static and is just inundated, right? And so it would seem to me that just when you look at economies and local economies, they're much more highly reactive to stimuli. And so you could see very quick reactions based on increases in inundation or flood events. So I guess one of the other things that as a long-term planning organization we have to be conscious of is, should we be putting infrastructure into places that could very quickly react to a higher frequency of flood events? Will there be in Atlantic City, right, from an economic perspective, if it's flooded even 3 to 5 times per year? So that's sort of, maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. The evidence so far suggests people really stay put. And actually then they quickly become trapped. There are neighborhoods in Atlantic City which already flood very frequently. We don't hear about them because they're on the poor side of town and on the back bay, and homes, people who most of their equity is in their home and the home has lost all value. Nothing gets sold, or if it does, it's for $20K. But there's also, fishing village in the Philippines, which sunk a meter in an earthquake, and the kids take math class with the water up to their knees, and all the villagers say, no, this is our home, we're not leaving. So that has tended to be the human reaction so far, has been to stay in place, defend, accommodate. I think it's more like the big Sandy type events that are going to lead people to have another thought. And generally you need often it takes two for people to think that it's not just a bad streak of luck. So on the other hand, it wouldn't shock me if at some point there was a very sudden kind of market turn when suddenly it was obvious to everyone that this is happening. I mean, I think it's the smart people will get out ahead of smart people who have access to the right information will get out ahead of the problem. But, you know, I don't see signs of that. You know, it's true. We're only analyzing stuff that's already in place, and we do that as an index, not as a projection of the future, but an index of what fraction of development is threatened. I think, you know, populations are continuing to grow. People are, and we did an analysis partnered with Zillow this summer, and in about half of the US states, like more new homes, and New Jersey is the worst culprit in this, more new homes are being built in the lowest, riskiest places. Homes are being, not more, but homes are being built in the riskiest, lowest places by the coast at a higher rate than the rest of the state. Now for Sandy, that's mostly, for New Jersey, that's mostly Sandy rebuild, but you're seeing that in a lot of other states too. So people haven't gotten it yet, but it doesn't mean that it won't someday happen. I expect places with more wealth will advocate for themselves and find ways to fund protections and hang on longer and defend property values more. And places with fewer resources are really going to face this potential trap where this is where those curves I showed early on, where you kind of double the annual flood risk at a certain level each decade, right? Suddenly things seem okay, and 10 or 20 years later, you're trapped. So that's the threat for some of those communities. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Dr. Sprout. Thank you. And now we turn to the general public participation section of the meeting. As a reminder, we advise members of the public that we have a 3-minute time limits for comments. The light on the timer would go from green to yellow when there is 30 seconds remaining, and then the red when the 3 minutes have been reached. I ask you to keep your comments within this allotted time. The floor is open for anyone from the audience who would like to make any comments. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. My name is Karen Akupniak, and I'm here to ask the board to stop the I-80 rockfall mitigation project until solutions to the issues that we've raised can be addressed. I've lived in the Village of Columbia for more than 23 years, and before the advent of smartphones, I could tell when there was an accident on Interstate 80 because of the volume of cars and trucks that come through town to detour to the Portland Bridge. Summer and holiday traffic backs up regularly due simply to normal volume. When there is an accident or construction closure, we go beyond volume and experience gridlock. Cars and trucks get off at Exit 4 and approach the Portland Bridge from both Highway 46 and by going through Columbia. Traffic backs up past our truck stop onto Simpson Road and up Highway 94. Gridlock develops on all streets in Columbia with traffic, including 18-wheelers, trying to get through town and merge with the vehicles on 46 to get to the Portland Bridge. And these are not friendly, happy people. During both volume delays and gridlock, our neighbors have experienced public urination, trash thrown on their lawns, and vehicles driving over yards in an effort to get around the traffic. I have personally witnessed several road rage incidents and was verbally abused by an angry motorist while walking the block and a half from my home to the post office one Saturday. These events disrupt our lives and present a threat to our safety. We can't walk our dogs or let our kids play outside. During one gridlock event, I literally ran the 3 miles to my vet's office for needed medicine after a neighbor told me they had just spent 2 hours driving the same 3 miles back into town. Those of us who live in Columbia accept the regular volume delays and occasional gridlock situations with a variety of grace because we view them as rare occurrences. Inconvenient, but not the norm, week in and week out for years. It's outrageous to ask us to deal with them on a regular basis. The DOT Commissioner's 9/4/19 letter to Senator Orojo and Assemblyman Worth and Space egregiously underestimates the impact of this proposed project on local communities. The town of Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania, at the other end of the detour, is similarly affected. It's disingenuous to propose that adding construction delays and road closures on any level to our present traffic conditions will not exacerbate the situation. We cannot be expected to tolerate these conditions for the number of years this work is expected to last. I'm not here to argue the merits of the project.
Ma'am, thank you. I believe, is that the 30 seconds or?
She has 30 seconds left.
I apologize.
Okay. I'm not here to argue the merits of the project, but the prospect of living with this level of disruption is even more frustrating when its need and benefits are debatable. I ask that you stop forward motion on this project until the issues of congestion, safety, economic, and lifestyle impact can be addressed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am, very much, and my apologies for trying to stop you in the way. Thank you.
Reading guys. Queued up. Are we ready? Good morning. Hello, Rockfall Project also. My name's Tony Martin. I'm a resident of East Stroudsburg, PA. I'm here to ask the board to halt this project until solutions to the issues raised can be addressed. I became concerned about the viability and need for this project because the study has an unusual number of inconsistencies, contradictions, and unsupported statements. I could go on all day about it, but here are a few examples. Just at the introduction alone, there are only 2 incidents referenced over a 5-year period. Neither of them are rockfall. One of them is a washout, one of them is a mudslide. They're not even in the project area. They're at mile marker 1.5, and that's not even a rock wall, that's a tree-lined area. Then it goes on to reference 2 other incidents in 2010, but apparently they're actually the same incident. Then the study references 82 vehicle crashes, kind of implying they're rockfall related. None of them are. On study page 15, and I quote, NJTPA provided limited rockfall event data and the actual frequency of rock activity is unknown. Attached risk assessment report, and I quote, there are no documented rockfall events nor any recollections of any significant rockfall events within Area D over the past 5 to 10 years, unquote, in the study. And these are just a few examples. I mean, the study's implying that this data supports the requirement to execute this project, but it does not. My point is, it appears that we're planning on an effort based on unsubstantiated, incomplete data, contradictory statements and requirements, or problem statements not even fully defined. And if you read the study, it's clear a decision was made on this concept before the study was even completed and data was gathered. It makes reference to a meeting in 2010 prior to the study, and it says, in quotes, solution, consensus New Jersey standard catchment fence. And this leads me to believe that all along this effort has been a foregone conclusion without analysis, discussion, or consideration of any alternative. I'm an engineer. I worked for the Army for 34 years. I was a chief engineer. I manage and approve projects like this all the time, and we always include a prioritization and balance of cost, schedule, performance, and risk. This effort is laser focused on technical only and one little piece of tech. How can an effort go from 4 million to 60 million and think that they're considering cost? How can it go from 2 to 4 years and think they're considering schedule? It's not. I mean, how can an effort proceed with just appears to be total disregard for really, thank you, the true risks in this area, which we all know are the aggressive drivers, the speeding, a road design that really doesn't meet any standards, poor drainage, more common debris like deer and tire caps, and the fact that this road converges from 2 to 4 lanes. I mean, these are the real risks, and they're just being like totally disregarded. So an effort like this would never go through in the Army where I worked. It would never get approved. Really why I'm saying we need to halt this project until we address the issue and come up with a better alternative. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments very much.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. My name is Bob McNinch. I'm a Knowlton Township committeeman. I'm also an engineer. I'm here today to ask NJTPA first to partner with the multitude of New Jersey and Pennsylvania residents impacted by the New Jersey Rockfall project and their elected municipal, county, state, and federal officials, and then halt this project until New Jersey DOT comes up with solutions to the serious issues raised. The issues include negative safety, historic, visual, environmental, and economic impacts and potentially irresponsible use of taxpayer funds. Today, I will touch briefly on negative safety impacts and cost effectiveness. I agree with Huntington Freeholder Holt, who at your last meeting stated to Warren Freeholder Saranowski, the project must be cost effective and with minimal impact. Freeholder Holt also said he would have the Huntington County Engineering Department work with their counterparts in Warren County and New Jersey DOT to review this and several other rockfall projects. Perhaps Freeholder Holt could address the status of this review at the conclusion of my comments. Is this project cost effective? There are a couple of obstacles to making this determination. First, New Jersey DOT has been less than forthcoming on providing the raw data that they claim to be the basis of the need for this project. Requests for same have been ignored, rejected, or worse still, responded with blank pages. Second, New Jersey DOT themselves, in their 2011 Concept Development Report, declare that a value engineering report, study, and review is not necessary for this project. It seems to me that a project for this size, with estimated cost increasing from $4.4 million in 2011 to $58 million now, a value engineering report to determine cost effectiveness is definitely in order. Does this project result in an overall positive or negative safety impact to the public using Route 80 and the construction workers? When asked, New Jersey DOT representative verbally advised that they had not done this analysis. They know that Route 80 is the main highway for residents of the westerly section of Warren County to access the closest hospital located in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Traffic slowdowns or stoppages are life-threatening to those en route to urgent hospital care. They know that sections of the highway already contain several safety deficiencies, including substandard shoulder widths. There is no room for ambulance to bypass stopped traffic via the shoulder. Dewberry engineers, in their 2017 Visual Impact Report to New Jersey DOT state, views of stopped and slowed vehicles and the highway are also anticipated to increase due to construction operations. Not the view one wants if in an ambulance en route to a hospital. Therefore, without a quantitative analysis of both positive and negative safety impacts, how can anyone say
Sir,
this project has an overall safety benefit to the public?
You can put your license. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and Committeemen. Today I'm here for the reality. My name is Frank Van Horn. I'm a former mayor and current township committeeman in Knowlton Township. I'm a 50-year exempt fireman, and I'm in a local county and state emergency management system, having served through 3 major floods, and I was involved in planning for safe zones in the tri-state area and a national disaster for 9/11. These safe zones depend, of course, on our major highways, 80, 46, and 78. In considering this project, has anyone given thought to these national safe zones? For the last 45 years since Route 80 is open, my family business has been milk pickup and delivery. At one time, we picked up approximately 700 farms and delivered this milk to farms in the regional dairies in New York and Pennsylvania. Along with our fellow bulk haulers, our schedules are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And over the 45 years, we've had over 2 million trips on Route 80, passing through the Delaware Water Gap. After discussion with the other truckers, we have never been detoured on Route 80, ever, due to a rockfall event. During the last 27 years, I've also been the guy that does the plowing for that section of road. We've never been called off duty because of a rockfall event. Being a lifelong fireman and former member of the ambulance corps, I've experienced multiple rescues in this section of Route 80, and none have rockfall-related accidents. The number of calls in this section of interstate averages between 70 and 80 a year. The event is so common that we refer to these accidents as scrap in the gap. But one accident on 80 creates a domino effect and on all secondary roads. About 2 months ago, the fire company and the rescue squad responded to 8 accidents in 3 days, 3 of them serious, just on a bridge repair work. Being the owner of a small trucking company that travels approximately 2 million miles a year, I have tankers and box trailers. My box trailers are 13 foot high, 8.5 foot wide, and 53 foot long. The tractors are about 17 feet, and they're at least 70 feet long. Now, if we go into that gap and we have that 11-foot lane, the off-track in here, I don't particularly know, but that means here where you're off-tracking, where your front tire goes and your back tire goes, we won't be able to go through there. In a later left-hand lane, I have done it, and where we make a right-hand turn, it could be anywhere from 3.5 to 6 feet on the off-tracking, just to give you a chance. In the early 1980s, my father, a former mayor and truck owner, suggested eliminating the S-turns of Route 80, which are causing continual death and destruction. He discussed it at the New Jersey DOT that the curves be replaced by a cantilever bridge out over the river. This is 40 years ago. This would result in a long, gradual curve, and this 40-year-old suggestion, I think, looks better all the time.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for having me back. My name is Tara Mezzanotte. I live in Columbia, New Jersey, 3 miles from the proposed project site. My husband, Chris, could not be here today. He's the construction professional that was here at the last meeting. We're here to ask for a review and a forum where all parties can come together so that our present situation can be addressed, perhaps maybe at the next priority committee meeting. Are you resetting me?
Okay, start now.
Excellent.
Extra time, it's okay.
I like it. We continue to ascertain that this project puts the public at increased risk, not worth its justification. Today we have on your table an AutoCAD drawing showing the newest risk. In addition to the promise of 4 to 5 years of increased gridlock and traffic, we now have the work zone accident chute. That was just announced at the last meeting. It was shared for the first time by the DOT. We're going to shrink the lanes in the existing situation that Mayor Van Horn just mentioned. We had not seen that before. Chris reacted and said, not possible. Today we show you not possible. Our New Jersey, New York, and Texas licensed professional engineer friend, the design manager on Chris's project, used his valuable time to put the DOT's latest plan into AutoCAD, using standard federally allowable truck dimensions on the sharpest point in the existing S-curve. With truck number 1 hitting the barrier and 10 inches between the mirrors, truck number 2 is hitting the next barrier. These hit points are highlighted in yellow with a red star. I quote our engineer friend, "The truck would need to have been driven by artificial intelligence to stay in their lane and not cause an accident." This just adds to the insults that we've just spoken about today, the lives we live. At the last meeting, we shared the fact that we've increased traffic and gridlock and increased safety risks. We would like to accept Chairman Estrada's offer to see what the board can do. 7 times at the last board meeting, you mentioned modifying, changing, doing something with this project after it's funded. That once it's funded, it's not guaranteed to go through. Clearly, the system has not worked for us. With this much stakeholder opposition, the Public Information Action Plan is clearly not working. Can this board assist by creating a forum where we have the opportunity to represent our interests and feel like our safety and interest truly matters? That there might be a chance for the DOT not to proceed without showing us that our safety and interests don't matter, and show us that they've been factored in to the justification for this project. It's a sincere question I do have today. Can you? Will you? We would like to come to a prioritization committee meeting. You granted the DOT its opportunity to present their presentation at the last prioritization committee meeting. We'd like to present ours. We'd like to show the board and that committee what our concerns really are on paper, like I've done today with our engineer. It's insulting. This spending of our taxpayer money, our time, our resources, to be here today, to still be talking about this, it's just not right. So we're asking today if that would be possible. A forum to get together, to bring all stakeholders to the table. Maybe you guys can provide the staffing for that, and also an opportunity to present at an upcoming prioritization committee meeting. That's it. Thank you. Answer? If I may, and Chairman Holt, Freeholder Holt, if you could answer us about the...
If you hold on 1 second, let me just Have a seat. Anyone else has any other comments? So I can close that part of the meeting. Go right ahead, sir. And I'll address your issue, ma'am, in a couple of minutes. At least 3 I know.
Okay, well, Tim Sevener from the Transit Village of Mount Tabor, representing the New Jersey Association of Rail Passengers. I got here, as always, on electric transportation, which is already running and carrying 300,000 people a day, as opposed to the 370,000 electric cars they plan in 5 years, assuming people can afford to buy them. As far as Route 80, we've known for years. Number one, you only have 5 trains going to Hackettstown. Why? It should have hourly service at least. And number 2, where's the Lackawanna cutoff? Okay, that would help you guys a lot and get traffic off 80 and also get cars off the road. As we meet, there's another climate disaster. Every time we meet, there's some climate disaster. This morning, it's Sydney, Australia is on fire. Okay, what I come here today is recently, New Jersey has an energy management plan about transportation, which I showed you is 47% of our emissions. It's the biggest factor. There is nothing in that plan. They make no mention of electric rail, which is already running. That's what we should be doing. The fastest and best way to reduce our emissions is with electric rail, which is already running, as I showed you also, with 100% renewable energy for the Dutch. And Austria just reached 100%. And Austria is actually putting solar panels above the rails. They get 1 to 3 megawatts, just solar panels above the catenaries. It's similar to ours. It's not the third rail. Above the catenaries is enough to power the trains. This is what we need. And despite your hand waving, I've been coming here for many years, as you know. I couldn't come when I was working, but you've made many promises about reducing driving, getting cars off the road. That's always in the plan. But once again, we have the announcement that the gas tax will not increase because guess what? We got 2.6% more cars on the Turnpike and 2% more cars on the Garden State Parkway. What are we doing? When are we going to get people on the trains? When are we going to electrify our trains? And you guys need to be in the table with this draft energy plan, with the energy management plan. Transportation is key. You and New Jersey Transit need to be there and tout solar electric rail. This is the answer. This is here today. We don't have to wait for electric cars. To give an example of electric cars, I have solar panels I have a solar backup, I told you before, 6 feet. I lost my power a month ago, okay? So I went off grid. During a day, I powered my whole house, including just to try it out to see if it would work, because the grid did come back. I did 2 loads of laundry, a dryer load, just to see if major appliances could work. I generated for that day, powering my whole house, 4.5 kilowatt hours of electricity.
Sir, I thank you for your comment.
Oh, is that it?
That was the second, yes.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that would provide only 20 miles of driving an electric car.
Okay.
My whole house. Thank you.
Come drive with me. I'm an owner of an electric car. Tell me. Okay, anyone else from the audience like to make any comments? I guess we're done for the public comments. Let me also make some comments as well. If anything that I recall in the meetings that we have had, I believe that we have been clear in the position that the NJTPA has taken in reference to the rockfall mitigation. As you're all aware, this is a project that was brought forth by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. As the originator of the project, they're the ones who hold power, whether it remains or moves. If anything that I recall from the last meeting was the fact is that there's still projects that's research being ongoing on this in order to get the, for example, if I recall correctly, the environmental impact and many other things that went along. And at the same time, I believe they were the ones who indicated of more participation in terms of the stakeholders, and I believe that every effort will be utilized to achieve that. If it comes down the road, a situation that we don't have that, again, nothing here, and if you remember my words, happens overnight. This is a planning process that does take time. And as much as I would like to say to you, oh yes, today is the 10th or 11th of November or 12th, will be done by December 15th, my birthday, it's just not gonna happen. That's unfortunate situation is. I truly believe that ultimately there will be a collaboration between the Department of Transportation as well as the stakeholders. Will it be acceptable to the stakeholders? I don't know. There's a lot of lacking of information in order to make that determination. And I want to thank Freeholder Holt for offering to help, and I am sure that will take place. I don't think this is the forum to start dialogues between individuals in this table and the audience. That's not the place. But I can assure you that as far as this project is concerned, you have done your job in terms of bringing up the issues that you feel impact this project. And I can assure you that NJDOT is very, very much aware of, if you want to call it a hot item or an item that needs attention. I think that if anything, that has been accomplished. Beyond that, I am not going to address any other issues other than one. I want to just, before we close this meeting, I would like to announce that the NJTPA board will elect the new officers for the next 2-year terms in the January meeting, and we'll be setting up a nominating committee within the next couple of weeks. I will announce who will be making up that committee.
In 2 years.
Over the next few weeks, the committee will confer, and we'll have a list of candidates for the executive committee position. And we'll be making the announcement at the January meeting, followed by the vote. As anyone is interested in making a nomination, please reach out to me or Mary Ann. Time and place of the next meeting will be New Jersey, will be held here. Our office will be held on January 13th at 10 o'clock in the morning. I call for an adjournment unless anyone has anything else to share with us. George?
Sex moves. For adjournment.
6 seconds.
I think we have George from Middlesex has called for an adjournment and seconded by Freeholder Bartlett. If those all in favor, will you just indicate by saying aye? Aye. Anybody opposed to closing? I guess the ayes have it. Thank you so much. Have a great day. We thank those individuals for coming out today and sharing their thoughts. Thank you.